Put on a suit, drink water, don't drink and drive.
Game over!
Take it light. Okay.
Now you're more fluent.
He's got three!
Up, Bears.
So this is really good right here. Absolutely. Let's do it.
The Boston Celtics. I have a video. Of every professional analyst saying they were picking Dallas.
All of them, Tom.
All of them. And I just want everyone to know that there's two people sitting right here in front of you. And when I tell you, listen to me, listen to him. I picked against me picking the Celtics is like someone betting against themselves. But this was the team. Like there was no Dallas never had. I'm sorry, Dallas never had a chance in this. You and I said it. And I'm gonna pull it up because I want you to just speak your piece a little bit. There's so much to talk about. So much to talk about. We're gonna get to you guys. Leafs already like, I'm coming. We're gonna get to you guys to come up and say you were right, you were wrong, because we're gonna talk about Boston, their players, what's next. Dallas, their players, what's next. The NBA, what's next. But let me let you have your minute because I'm gonna pull up this video of everybody picking against them, and two, because you've been telling me over it's coming, Tatum's coming. We're gonna fight about that in a minute, but go ahead. You sent me a message that said today's topic tone. Jayson Tatum gets the monkey off his back, and I was picturing Steve Young. Remember when he takes the monkey?
That's why I said that. For that reason specifically, Tone. That's exactly why I said that, because considering, who Steve Young had came after, right? Who his lineage was. He was playing behind Joe Montana. And in order for him to become, or for him to be put in that conversation as one of the best 49ers, and not just one of the best 49ers, one of the better quarterbacks in the league, he had to win. And it had to have a lot to do with him, was one of the reasons why he had to win. That's why I brought that up to you. And we talked about this before the season started. We talked about this as the season went on. We talked about this when the playoffs started. And we talked about this when the finals started. Tone, you can't keep getting there. Getting there is not enough. You have to win it. You have to win it. As much as good as you are and as good as the showing you have, we can't keep saying next year. Okay, they're getting better next year. We can't keep saying that. We can say that when you're young. 100% we can. We can say that when you're young because you're building something. You got a unit that they're building around you and your skill set is getting better. You're improving. But at some point, this whole next year, it starts to get old. It starts to get old. What it reminds me of is, I remember seeing on social media, was this kid who his mother kept saying to him tomorrow, and he just was over it. He's tomorrow, Ma, stop saying tomorrow. I'm tired of hearing tomorrow. Now is the time when you had the Celtic team that was basically built around Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown's skill set, to put players around them to complement them, which is what championship organizations do. They take players. I mean, they take teams. They got their franchise player, and they build around that player's skill set. Whether they do a great job or not depends on how far they go. With this Celtic team, I thought that they did a great job of complementing what Jayson Tatum's skill set was, what Jaylen Brown's skill set was, what these guys were ultimately, and everything that you need necessary in order to win, they had it this season. So there was no reason why they shouldn't win it, except that it would be a major collapse. And it wasn't that. It was not that. They did what was necessary. Now, sure, Tone, what we're talking about here is we're talking about the best player on the best team. How does he stack up with the all-time greats? of James and Wade and Brian. And okay, well, I don't think he's there yet. I don't. He's still, if he's going to get to that, if he's going to get to that pantheon, he's still got a lot more work to do, 100%. However, him getting to this point of being an integral part of his team winning, even though he did underperform in a scoring aspect, I think that takes the monkey off of his back.
I couldn't disagree with you more on that last part. Because when you say a major collapse, it not just a major collapse of one player, like it would have had to have been a major collapse of epic team proportions. Like you would have had to have all of them play the way Jayson Tatum scored, because he did so many other things. Like everyone says he played terrible this first 2 games. No, he scored terribly. He was very inefficient, but he did everything else better than he normally does, with the exception of shooting and scoring. So let's first clarify that piece. But the monkey's not off his back, because the argument here now is, congratulations, Boston Celtics, you won your 18th title. Jayson Tatum, you've won your first. I'm gonna make fun of him in a second.
Of many.
Well, we'll see, because that's what we said about Giannis. And now I don't know if Giannis is ever going to make it back unless they make some changes in Milwaukee. I think Giannis had his run and he's done. Denver, Jokic, this might be his only one, unless they make some changes. That being said, Jayson Tatum, that monkey on his back is to be the best player on the best team, to be an MVP. Well, he's never been an MVP of the league. In fact, this was the first time in forever that we, not forever, but when I say forever, in a very long time, that we've had an NBA final without a previous MVP in it.
That's not happened before.
It's been a very, I want to say it's 20 some odd years. It's been a long time, if ever. Let's leave it at that. I'm sure someone in the chat will give us the exact stat. That's why I love you guys. So he's not a regular season MVP. He didn't play exceptional in the first 2 wins, because people will look, they'll look at scoring.
Sure.
He didn't play, the last 3 games, he didn't play exceptionally better, right? He didn't have that big 40-point, 50-point kind of thing that people were looking for. Jaylen Brown wins the MVP. And look, it was close. I'm sure it was close. I did make an argument that it should have been Drew Holiday. Because of the 3, Drew Holiday was the most consistent, most efficient scorer, passer, defender, dirty work guy, hustle guy for all 5 games. And I know you don't get necessarily MVP for being consistent, but he was the most consistent guy, and he made life miserable
for Drew Holiday. For Kyrie Irving, sure.
For Kyrie, who let's be honest, Dallas lost because Kyrie stunk, but he didn't stink because he stunk. He stunk because primarily Drew Holiday was shutting his ass down.
Yes.
So you can make an argument. I'm not saying he's the best player of the team. Let's be very clear. So now you know this, other than Boston faithful, Tatum guys like yourself, and it's not a bad thing to be a Tatum guy. Tatum's a phenomenal player. There's going to be guys that best player. He's not even the best player on his team. Jaylen Brown won the Eastern Conference MVP. He won the Finals MVP. They wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for Porzingis holding them down in game 1, Drew Holiday holding them down in game 2, Drew Holiday's defense. I think he's actually created a situation where he's happy. Celtics are happy. The naysayers, which are 80%, or at least the loudest. It might only be 20%, but they're the loudest. They seem like they're
sure.
They're going to be coming after Jayson Tatum.
Well, the reason why, Tone,
win a Finals MVP.
That's that's the problem right there. That's the problem right there. Even though he could have very well won it, the fact that he didn't win it in convincing fashion. Because I said to you, Tone, last time I talked to you, I said that your best player on a championship team, he'll give me a game. whether he's playing bad or not. I mean, I watched Jordan in the finals in 96. Jordan wasn't great in those finals in 96. He was not. Mike did give me a game, though.
Sure.
Right?
I think in the third quarter they were down. They went on a run without him.
Yes.
He would save the series. Yeah,
absolutely. So it's not like these guys are consistently great all the time. No, they have problems throughout the course of series. But the best of them will give me a game. I think the biggest problem that we have right now with Jayson Tatum is, even though his skill set is better than Jaylen Brown, and when he maximizes it, I think that there's a lot of separation between the two of them when he maximizes his skill set. But Jaylen Brown is one of those players, when he's really good, he's really good. When he's doing the things that he's really good at, he's pretty damn good. I think Jaylen Brown is when we talk about transition players, Siakam, James, Giannis, when we talk about transition players, I don't know if I can name that many transition players in the game better than Jaylen Brown. He's one of the best finishers in the game. He's great in transition. Statistically, I think Siakam, James, and Giannis are at the top of the league. However, Jaylen Brown, for all intents and purposes, doesn't get the same amount of attention because of his skill set that Tatum gets.
Of course.
So, of course, that's going to be the conversation. Tone, the same thing we had to listen to right now with Jayson Tatum. I don't know if you remember this, Tone, and I know that I hate to bring this up to you, but the same conversation was going on with Shaq and Kobe. The same thing was going on with Shaq and Kobe when we got into the 2000, 2001. Hey, wait a minute. Is Bryant better than Shaq? Is he really?
But Kobe and Shaq are both significantly better than Tatum and Brown.
Sure they are, but here's the difference. The difference is that we're talking about two guys on a championship team. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about two guys on a championship team, and at one point, Shaq was significantly better, not than Bryant, but everybody else.
Sure.
But then Bryant closed the gap. The gap got closed, and now the question is Bryant better than Shaq? Even though I never thought he was. But it became a conversation, and the conversation started to get louder as time went on. Now,
now hold on. Now, let me pause you there for a second.
Yep.
Let's say that conversation happens in 2000 when they're winning their first title.
Yep.
And Kobe, I don't think this existed, but Kobe wins the Eastern Conference MVP. Kobe, listen, Jaylen Brown statistically, not by much, but statistically outplayed Jayson Tatum. He also plays better defense than Jayson Tatum. So in that 2000, let's say Kobe wins the Finals MVP. Doesn't the conversation become, well, Shaq has something to prove? Well, just like the conversation will be, Tatum now has something to prove?
Sure. Well, the same logic could be said to your point when you just brought up Kobe winning the Western Conference Finals MVP in 2000. I don't think it's a question he would have won it in 2001. The Western Conference Finals MVP.
But I'm saying I'm picking the first win.
Of course.
This is the first time they've won together. And again, let's be very clear. I'm not saying this.
Sure.
I'm saying that that's going to be the narrative here in a minute.
The detractors.
Yeah.
Sure. The detractors will bring this up. The fact that Jayson Tatum wasn't clear-cut the best player, and the fact that this team.
Don't forget the last finals too, because remember when you come off a bad performance,
right,
and then you don't get better, although I think he got better, but he's still not the best. When he's not significantly the best. Tony. I think that's the issue that we're having. Yes, here. We expect him to be the clear cut. He's the guy,
right.
And you're going to get a lot of, I think, comparisons to, Steph Curry. Couldn't have won without a team. Yeah, he's nice. He's nice, but he wasn't winning Finals MVP because he had Draymond and Clay and Iggy, and then he had KD and like it's coming.
So if that's the case, Tone, and I'm glad you brought that up, because if that's the case, then the question has to be asked: where do you value Jayson Tatum? Where is he as a player in terms of the pantheon of players? And I feel like we're going to go over this at some point. But where is he in the pantheon of players? I don't look at him like I look at James, Bryant, Jabbar, Bird, in terms of great players on championship teams.
Yeah,
I don't look at him. I don't think he's that good. I'm not sure he's ever going to be that good. I'm not saying that he won't, but I'm not sure he's ever going to be that good. But I still feel like with what he did with this Boston Celtic unit, even though he underperformed as a scorer and as a shooter, he did underperform. I won't argue that.
100%.
I can't argue that. And I think that that's largely due to him worrying about what the performance was in 2022. I think that was largely due to that. Even though he didn't perform to the level that you want him to perform as a shooter, I still think that he played an integral part in what they were doing on the other end, defensively, as a distributor, as a rebounder, not being able to score the basketball, which is what we need you to do, also to separate yourself, which is also what I think he did yesterday. Because I said that to you, Tone. I told you that the great players give me a game. And Jayson Tatum gave me that game yesterday. He gave me that game yesterday. That 30, 10, and 8 game that I was looking for. I knew it was coming. I just didn't know when it was coming. But I knew it was coming. And it showed up yesterday. And I thought that the best player or whoever played the best in that closeout game was going to win the finals MVP. Now, what I mean when I say it doesn't mean that I value him like I value those other guys. But in today's game, on a championship team, I still think he's amongst the best players in the league.
See, and that's where I struggle, because I think him and Brown are like, I don't want to call them twos because they're not a two, but I believe they're both like 1Bs, and they have to have, like, if you look at who they have around them,
right,
that it's the best, no question. I believe, maybe there is no question for me, the best supporting cast in your
estimation, Tone. If you think about the league today, can you name a starting 5 better than the Boston Celtics?
No, I can't name a starting set. 5 plus 2. I can't name 7 better.
So a 7-man rotation. You can't give me a 7-man rotation in the league today better than the Boston Celtics.
No, I can't. And that's why I say they're 1Bs, because the question still will forever be, unless they do it alone, because there is no right there isn't a lot of separation. I agree that Tatum is better than Brown, but I don't think the separation is big. And so, the question will arise, and I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit here, right? And Joe Dumars, Isaiah Thomas is actually a really good example. So thank you, Bruce. If you put Jayson Tatum in Luka's spot, is Dallas in the NBA final? I think no.
That's a bad comparison.
It's a different team. No, I'm just saying as an example. You can pick any. Can he lead a team without a super solid cast? And look, maybe we never see it but I guarantee you we're going to find out, because when is Tatum's contract up?
Well, he's up for an extension this summer,
which means he's going to get
2 more years.
$400 million. Yeah, which means he's going to get $400 million if Tatum got 350.
315. He's 315 is what
okay.
He's
Sorry. Okay, so Tatum's gonna get 350 then to Brown's 315. They're not going to have the money for Derek White, Drew Holiday, Porzingis, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They're just not there.
Well, here's the thing, Tony. They already extended Drew Holiday. They already extended Porzingis.
I understand.
They already extended those guys. The question is Derek White. To your point, he comes off the books at the end of this year. They may lose him in free agency, because you, Tone, you know exactly how this works in terms of I believe it's the first, what is it, the first tier and the second tier in luxury tax. I think they're looking at
there's aprons.
Apron, that's what I'm talking about. Aprons. And with the aprons, Tone, if I'm not mistaken, 3 of the 5 teams in the NBA, 3 of the top 5 teams in the NBA are in the luxury tax. They've won the NBA championship.
Yeah, you have to. You have to.
6 of the last 7 have been either in the conference finals or in the NBA championship. You're not winning on the cheap in the NBA. That's not happening.
You're absolutely not winning on the cheap. But I think the Warriors showed us, right? Bob Myers bounced for a reason. He saw that coming. I told you it was coming. And so now listen, the good news is he's got 2 years before that money kicks in. So they can still sign, right? If I'm Derek White, I want to stay. So they can still re-sign these guys, but there's going to come a point. That's why when you say another one, I look and I say, well, let's look at the calamity of errors that had to happen for Boston. So they had to have by far the best roster in the NBA. They had to have, not had to. I still think they win the NBA championship if everybody is healthy. If Denver was in the final, if Minnesota made it to the final, I think they're still winning. If they faced Miami and Cleveland and Indiana all healthy, the Knicks healthy, I still think they're the best team. I still think they win. Now, it's not 5-5-4-5, right? It's maybe 6-7-6-7, whatever. However, they did have an easier road to the final. They did have everything go their way, and you know this. How often is that gonna? They've been, with the exception of Porzingis, they've been injury-free, Brown and Tatum, for the most part. So there's a lot that can happen, and I think their window's 2 more years, and then once you're paying $350, like, just think, almost $700 million to 2 guys.
It's expensive.
Boston is not it's a great basketball town, but it's not a big market. Like there's a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. I'm not. They're not crying poor. I'm just saying, people, like, there are owners, there are people who this is a business for them too, right? People think, oh, they're just about winning. No, this isn't Red Auerbach where your highest paid player makes, $100,000. Like, this is a lot of money that there's going to be an accountant there, like, on.
No.
I don't know about this. So let's toot our own horns here for a second.
Here's what I'm going to tell you today. I got the Dallas Mavericks.
I think there's going to be a parade in Dallas.
Who'd you really beat, though? Who'd you really beat?
I have Dallas. I think Dallas will win.
So obviously I'm going with Dallas.
I'm sorry.
Dallas. I got Dallas winning. I think Dallas is deeper.
I don't think Boston's deep at all.
I like Dallas in this series.
It's an easy choice for me. Dallas.
The Boston Celtics have not seen anything close to what Dallas Mavericks are. One of the 2 best players on this floor will be Luka and Kyrie.
You're just a very good team that could get to the finals but won't win it.
So my point is, you and I picked Boston.
Yep.
My point is, you and I picked Boston. That's actually my point. You and I picked Boston. You and I picked Boston. All of them. Listen, if you agree with me wrong, there's a problem right off the bat.
Right. The problem that we're having, Tone, is everybody got caught up in the aesthetics. Luka's game, Kyrie's game is pretty, right? The fact that Luka is, I still think to this day, I think Luka's the best scorer in the game. I don't think there's a guy in the game who scores the basketball easier than Luka. So it looks great. And they're also going off of the failures from the Boston Celtics in the past. They failed in 18. They failed in 20. They failed in 22. They failed last year. And here we are back this year, and the road has been less difficult. Now, to your point, Tone, does Jimmy Butler push them over the hump? I just think the series is a little more interesting if Jimmy Butler plays. I still think they beat them in 5, maybe 6 games, tops. I still think that they handle them. Does Donovan Mitchell and Jared Allen's injury mean this series is substantially different? No. I just think that they make it a little bit more interesting. That's it. It still can lead to 5 games, 6 games. Tyrese Halliburton was there half the series, and they still smoked them. They still smoked them with Tyrese Halliburton, who has been nursing.
Yeah, but listen, if we're going to be fair, Indiana shouldn't have been there in the first place, because Indiana had the luxury of playing the Bucks without Giannis and then a hurt Dame, then a New York Knicks ambulance squad. Like,
right. So back to your point, the idea that winning is just about being good. No, you do need some things to go your way. 100%. You absolutely need some things to go your way. But the aesthetics, Kyrie Irving's game, how pretty it is, the fact that the Boston
I hate that, by the way.
I'm sorry, Tom.
I hate it. Oh, he's the most skilled player we've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
But none of you have him in the top 10. So what does all that skill mean? Nothing. Bupkis, what does he do in the finals? Nothing. Right? Like, it drives me nuts. That team is still built on 1 star. That's it. it's Luka. There's one star on that team, and I know we're going to talk about Dallas, what they're going to do next, but let's do that. But I just Boston had the easiest road I've maybe ever seen to an NBA championship, and I think it's going to hurt them because we're going to talk about where they rank
all time,
and it's low. It's low.
Sure. Now, back to the detractors who all had the Dallas Mavericks. Of course, it was about the aesthetics. I went off of what I seen all year from this Boston Celtic team, from wire to wire, where they were from the beginning of the season, how they played, not just from the beginning of the season, in the middle of the season, even though I was critical of them, who sometimes they showed up and sometimes they just showed up and they didn't play as hard because they thought they were better than what they were, and that wasn't the case. But for the most part, they did everything that was necessary in order for them to win. Everything that was necessary in order for them to win. Now we can talk about the fact that they had an easy road to the NBA Finals. Well, they also were 22 games over 500 against the Western Conference. 22 games over 500 against the Western Conference. They mopped everybody in the East. They were the best team. I believe they were 13 games ahead of Milwaukee in the East. Now, some people will tell me that the Eastern Conference is weak. Well, sure, the Eastern Conference being weak, but I can only play who's in front of me.
No, yeah,
I can only play who's in front of me. That's number one. Number one. Number two, with Giannis in the Eastern Conference, with Joel Embiid in the Eastern Conference, with these guys in the Eastern Conference, and them still running away with it like they did, and with the talent that they had, and for them still to produce like they did, because Tone, just because I got a bunch of talent on my team does not necessarily mean it's going to work, because we've seen how Buffalo's going. We've seen how that's going, Tone. And you are an advocate of that. You talk to me all the time about when the Buffalo Braves signed this guy and they signed that guy, and it goes to pieces. It goes to pieces. We've seen how many times.
But it's different. It's different. Because when I say that about star players, what Boston did this year, and to their credit, Brad Stevens, let's give him a shout out, right? He took what Danny Ainge started, and he didn't. I was going to cuss. He didn't mess it up. He built on it, and he put players around. I've said this a million times. The Drew Holiday deal, Milwaukee should be ashamed of themselves, and I get it how we got there, but should be ashamed of themselves that they allowed a division rival or conference rival, whatever. Yeah, no, a division rival to get the guy who brought them a chip. I'm sorry, right? Drew Holiday goes to Milwaukee and replaces I'm going to draw a blank on his name. Who is their starting?
Eric Bledsoe.
Eric Bledsoe. Yeah. He goes and replaces Eric Bledsoe. First year, boom, chip. He goes in, and I love Marcus Smart. He goes to Boston, replaces Marcus Smart, a taller, better defender, more consistent, efficient scorer. Boom. Oh, they win a championship. The fact that they let Drew Holiday go for Dame for a name, and I told you this at the time, is the stupidest thing they ever did.
You hated that, Tone, and I understand. I understand why you hated it from, again, the aesthetics point. They did that to show Giannis that we're serious.
Yeah, we're serious. Yeah, we're serious.
That's the only reason why they did that.
Yeah, you know what Boston did? Boston really showed Tatum we're serious because they put. And when you say the East has Embiid, his team stinks. Sorry, I like Tyrese Maxey, but he's not a number 2, so they're still trash. From a championship perspective, they're not trash, but their chances of winning a championship are none. Milwaukee's battered and bruised, and 90-year-old Dame Lillard, they're done. Who else is in the East?
Indiana, Orlando, Miami.
Trash, garbage. Miami is better off blowing it up when you think about the fact that Jimmy Butler's working his way out, as he does everywhere he goes. But fine. He's got a shelf life. The Knicks are the Knicks, so they're going to keep nicking. I
don't know about that one, Tony. The Knicks have actually gotten better. Yes, they've
gotten better, but
they've gotten significantly better. And I think that had they been healthy,
I guarantee you, one, OG signs somewhere else, and the Knicks lose 10 more games than they
lose him in free agency, Tone.
1,000%, he's out.
Oh my goodness! If they lose,
so they traded all that for nothing. And Jaylen Brunson, love him, but he cannot carry that team much longer.
Right.
And we already know what Randall does in the playoffs. So Orlando is still too young. And what's going to happen is Banchero's going to become a star and leave. because that's what they do in Orlando. I'm so like, these are just facts. History doesn't repeat itself, and people go, "Oh, it's gonna be different this time." No, it's not. Miami, your best player, the Shaq, Dwight Howard. Like, you get good and you leave Orlando. That's what you do. Then you've got, hey,
oh boy,
Fluent Jr.'s a little sick. So
what up, man?
He's,
all right?
he's feeling under the weather. So he's you know it's serious when he didn't go to baseball practice today.
Oh, got a little bit of a bug. That happens.
Yeah, and if you see me, I'm looking a little crispy. I was out golfing all day. Anyways, it's a story for another day. Bam's your best player in Miami, and with the exception of Jimmy,
at least he should be. At least he should be.
He should be. He should be.
At least he should be.
With the exception of Jimmy, who, like I said, I think is gone. They've got a terrible roster. Duncan Robinson shouldn't be anywhere near a basketball court. Tyler Hero as a starter on a team that has championship aspirations. So the East is actually garbage, especially when you consider, again, in comparison to this Boston Celtics roster. Like, there's no team in the East that goes deeper than 3, whereas they go 7-8. So you got 3 against 7, you're going to lose.
Right.
And again, I tip my hat to Boston because they did this the right way. They had their star in Jayson Tatum. They had their secondary star in Jaylen Brown, and they said, what do they need? Well, they need perimeter defender. Boom. Right. Drew Holiday brought him. We need a guy who can stretch the floor but can block shots, or at least alter guys' shots at the rim. They bring in a 7'3" unicorn. Excellent, right? Derek White, we're going to insert you into the starting rotation. No, everyone thought Al Horford was somehow going to be a starter. They were like, nope. And now you have maybe the best defensive perimeter tandem in White and Holiday. And then you got Brown and Tatum on the wings with Porzingis just standing there going, this is fun, right? Like they did it. They did it. And then you've got a guy like Horford. Let's not give 98-year-old Horford his credit. He did what a veteran guy is supposed to do. He picked up those minutes, and so this team, and that's why I say again, every fan of every other team is going to hate me for this, but I'm saying in comparison to what Boston has done with their roster, with Chicago, Toronto, Detroit, like go down the list. There's
right, Tone. And I won't argue. But what it sounds like, Tone, is it sounds like the East is weak. That's why
it's not. No, it's not that they're weak so much as Boston is so much stronger.
That's what I want to get to, Tone. That right there. The fact that I've actually done right. I took my money and I invested it. You took your money and you blew it on
you went to the casino and you played Hold'em and lost.
That's what you did. So I don't feel like I feel like I should be praised for the fact that I took my money, invested it, and now I live in a nice neighborhood. The neighborhood we live in. I took my money and I fixed up my house. You, on the other hand, you took your bread and you bought cars and you bought meaningless.
You got the Rollie on, but you ain't got a house to polish it in.
Your house is falling apart. Your backyard is terrible. But you live in a terrible neighborhood. No, I live in the same neighborhood you do. I got the same amount of bread that you had. I just did something smarter with my money than you did. And I don't think that I should be penalized for that. Because when I look at what the Boston Celtics did, the fact that Brad Stevens saw the Milwaukee Bucks hand over to Holiday.
And again, guys, because I'm seeing in the chat like, so now it's because they're a super team. No, they're not a super team. I don't even believe in the word super team. I think that's a scam perpetrated by people making excuses for why their team lost or why another team won. Super team. No, they're not. What I'm saying is the Celtics need to get all the credit in the world for building that, and shame on every other team in the East who just has continuously, let's be honest, since Red Auerbach, the Boston Celtics have been 3 steps ahead for the most part. There's been lulls, but for the most part, they've been 3 steps ahead of everybody else. Just look at what Red Auerbach forever was 10 steps ahead of everybody else. Fast forward, right? Fast forward. Now, again, there was a lull there for a bit. Danny Ainge comes in, right, and calls up his old friend in Minnesota and creates a team.
I need a favor.
Can I get KG over here? Right, and then continues, and then Philadelphia. Do you know the order of draft picks? The years that Tatum and Brown came out?
Yes.
Was Philly, LA, Boston, Philly, LA, Boston. So Philly and LA both passed on Tatum and Brown in consecutive, I believe it was in consecutive years.
Yes. Brown in 16,
and Boston was sitting there at number 3 going, cool. Like
Bro.
Lonzo Ball, I can understand. I can even understand who's the dude that can't shoot that had that weird hitch in his shot that ended up going to Orlando. Fultz, Markelle Fultz.
Yeah, Markelle Fultz.
I get it. Everyone was, he's the guy. And Danny Ainge said, yep, he's the guy, even though he never had any intention of drafting him. Zero. You drafted Lonzo freaking Ball, bro. Like, come on, man. Come on.
The fact that
and sorry, it hurts because it's the Lakers. It hurts a little more. It hurts.
Of course it does. And the fact that front office in Boston is so not just savvy, but aware.
Yeah.
And not just aware, but also how much stones it took to actually do that. So the Milwaukee Bucks hand over. I'm sorry I'm laughing, Tone, but that's not
so sad.
The fact that they just handed over Drew Holiday. This is a starting point guard on the championship team for Damian Lillard. I understand why you did it, but they handed him over.
I don't. I do.
I understand, Tone, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to show Giannis.
Then trade everybody else and bring in someone to go along with Giannis and Holiday. You don't give a dude. You don't and I know they tried and failed. You don't trade away Scottie Pippen to show Jordan, hey, we're going to try and bring you in whoever. No, you don't. You don't. Hey, you need some rebounding? Hey, we traded Scottie Pippen for, I don't know, whoever was we traded him for Rodman. No, you keep both. You keep both.
And we figure out a way to get Rodman. So the fact that they moved off of Drew Holiday, who was everything that they were looking for less than piece, which wasn't good. And the fact that the Boston Celtics, Brad Stevens, knows for a fact Drew Holiday is not putting on a Portland Trail Blazers uniform. No, he is not.
No. They're rebuilding. They're going young. Absolutely.
So the fact that Pat Riley, who I'm thinking to myself, that was the first guy I thought about, Tone. I'm thinking Pat Riley, pick up the telephone and call the Trail Blazers. I know that the situation with Damian Lillard.
That's what I said to you. Remember when that happened? I said, if I'm Miami, I'm on the phone trying to get Drew Holiday. Hey, I couldn't get Dame. Let me get Drew.
Pick up the telephone and call Portland up and let them know that, okay, the Damian Lillard thing didn't work. What about Drew Holiday? Because you're clearly not going to move forward with him. What's that? What is it going to take? Well, I think Brad Stevens, I don't think he wasted any time. He called up the Portland Trail Blazers and said, listen, I don't even care about what your plan is with him. I got Grant Williams and I got Robert Williams. How about you hand over Drew? Yes, you got a deal.
Listen,
yes, you got a deal.
I know that everyone's going to the Lakers, but let's be honest. We were going into the season with D'Lo.
Yes, you were.
There's nothing we could have done to get Drew. He was already on the West Coast, technically on paper.
Technically.
And then I make them happy because I get them out of the East. Get them out of the East. Because you know what Milwaukee needs right now? A perimeter defender.
That's exactly what they need. And they handed over arguably the best in the game. Handed them right over. That's why I said that Milwaukee was fool's gold all year long. I said that they were fool's gold all year long. I just wasn't a fan of what they were doing. And I knew that this thing was going to crash and burn. I knew it. So kudos to the Boston Celtics for putting together this sort of championship unit. And the question is how long can this go on, Tone? And the reason why I'm asking you this is because we're living in a different era now, right? So last night marks the 6th champion in as many seasons. So we're basically in what we were in the 70s, where we have a ridiculous amount of parity. So because of that, where are we moving forward? I don't think we're going to see the Miami Heat, who went to the NBA championship 4 times in 4 years. I don't think we're going to see the Golden State Warriors, who were in the NBA championship 6 times in 8 years, winning 4. I don't think we're going to see that in this era. Are we going to see it again? Maybe. I just don't think we're going to see it in this era. So the question is where are we moving forward in this era? Can the Boston Celtics do it again? I don't know.
I'm going to tell you this right now. I wouldn't be surprised. Actually, no, I'm not even going to cop out and say I wouldn't be surprised. I'm calling it today. Now, there's always the caveat, barring any major injuries to their stars, the Boston Celtics are going to three-peat. And it sucks for my Lakers because that's 18, 19, and 20. And we're going to be stuck at 17. And as you've said many times, LeBron's not winning another chip. And I agree with you because with JJ Redick coming in and Bronny James coming in and Grandma Ma coming in and maybe they'll even draft me in the second round. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm calling it today. Boston Celtics are going to three-peat as Eastern Conference champions.
As Eastern Conference champions, they're going back to the finals for two more years.
More years in a row. Yeah, it'll be 3 and 4.
Whether they win the NBA championship 2 more times, that remains to be seen.
The West is very strong.
Mm-hmm.
The West is very strong, and it depends what they build around some of these guys. So I can tell you from year to year whether I'm going to pick them or not. But I think they have a very good shot at three-peating, and it's the first time that we're going to see a team that has, again, barring injuries, that has an opportunity to go back to back and maybe back again because, again, the East is roster-wise, in comparison to Boston, again, give Boston credit, is in shambles. There's no, again, barring something crazy happening, they're not in good shape. And when you look at the West, and I told you this a million times, the loss of Bruce Brown and Green was going to affect Denver, and it did. And that's the problem. That's where Boston is right now. If they lose listen, LeBron James said his own words to you, Miami was a super team when we put Bosh, Wade, and myself together, but we didn't have the right pieces, the right role players, the right complementary pieces because they were all minimum vets to get it done. We still went to the finals and lost, but we did not have the complementary pieces. I keep telling people this and they don't listen. This is a team game, and there's no one player that can win an NBA championship without a bunch of people. Look, they can win with like non-superstars, absolutely, but they need to have defenders, shooters, like they need to have pieces that know their role and play their role. Like that's when I say it, sometimes people treat me like I'm saying something crazy. Sure.
And I want you to stay there too, Tone. I want you to stay right there because I also think, like we just talked about, the Miami Heat going to the NBA championship 4 straight years and winning 2. The Golden State Warriors going 6 times in 8 years, and I don't think that we're going to see units like that anymore. Neither. I think the era of the big 3. I think the era of the super team, quote unquote, teams full of superstars. I think those days are over too. I think that you have a team now. I think teams in this era, I think that they're going to be built more with complementary players and 2 stars.
But you kind of have in the East a similar situation. That's why I'm saying I don't think it's crazy to say Boston can go to 3 straight. Is you have us in 3 out of 4? No, 3 straight. Yeah, so 4 out of 5 years. I don't think that's crazy to say because Boston has, to a lesser extent, Boston has what Miami kind of had in the sense that they had 2 star players, right? Bosh was a borderline star, but really
he was elite. Tone. Don't do that.
Hold on, no. Hear me out. He wasn't elite because he couldn't lead his own team, to anything other than a 500 record. Now it was a horrible roster. Don't get me wrong, but listen, he was top 10 scorer, top 20 rebounder.
Right,
elite. He wasn't a superstar, is what I'm saying, and he had
a star. Sure, he was a star.
Yeah, he had to play, and he had to take on a much lesser role.
Right.
So what you have is, and I'm not comparing these two, but in the East right now, you have Tatum and Brown, who are arguably the best tandem in the East. No, not arguably, they're the best tandem in the East. I'll say it just bluntly. And then you have a Drew Holiday, Porzingis that are, I think, the best 3-4 options in the East. Find me another 3-4 combo better than Holiday and Porzingis. Now,
but they're still complementary pieces, though, Tone. That's the difference.
They are. But my point is, when you look at that and then you compare to the rest of the East, this should be Boston's conference to run for the next 3 to 5 years, because just like Miami took LeBron from Cleveland, now they go into tank mode and they stink. Took Bosh from Toronto, and now Toronto, because listen, with Bosh, they were a 500 team. You take away their best player, right?
Sure, it lessens them 100%.
So now you got rid of 2 teams. Well, when you look at the rest of the East, there was the aging, I want to say Celtics. You're going to have a team that pops up for a year or two, right? But for the most part, Miami was the best team in the East.
Right.
I don't think anybody argues that. You had the best player, you had this, and then two other really good players. Well, I think that's where Boston is. You have maybe not the best player because people will argue it's Embiid, it's whatever, but Giannis. But you have the best 1-2 and 3-4 punches. So you got the best 1-2 and the best 3-4. The East, unless a team figures it out and says, okay, now I'm going to completely retool my team.
Right.
They are poised to do that. That's all I'm saying. They're poised to do that. They're set up to they're set up to do that. So when you say, like, when you use Warriors as an example, the Warriors weren't a super team, guys. They weren't a super team. Like, I'm sorry,
when you added KD to that unit,
sure. But for the first two that they went to,
that was not a super team. No,
it was Steph who's a superstar. Clay, I'm sorry, Clay
wasn't there yet,
but he was a complimentary player, right? Draymond Green was like you say, everybody's a role player, but neither Clay or Draymond could be the number one guy on a team, right? We all agree, I think, on that. So it was really a team that was built around a superstar, two great shooters. One of them happened to be your superstar, a facilitator and defender in Draymond, and then complementary pieces who did what they were supposed to do. And to your point, that is the formula for success. And I think Boston's the only team in the East that's built that way. They've got their two guys and they've got their complementary pieces. Everybody else is playing catch up at this point.
I think so. And when you talk about what the Boston Celtics have done in terms of getting those complementary pieces, I mean, I don't think it's the same as what Miami did. Chris Bosh was still a top 15 player in the game.
Oh yeah. I wasn't comparing it to Miami. I was just saying in the sense of.
And this is what I'm thinking about, Tone. When I think about moving forward, what these teams are going to look like. You have been an advocate of the super team not being a success, and it hasn't been, with the exception of what Miami did with James. That's an anomaly.
But it's also short-lived, even when it does work, like Miami, like KD, right? It's
not something that's sustainable. No, it's not. It's not something it's not sustainable more than drafting a guy and building your unit around that guy and putting complementary pieces around him. Now, don't get me wrong. The Golden State Warriors adding KD to the roster, I think that makes them a super team. However, when you think about what the Boston Celtics have, where they exchange the players that they already had. So they exchange Grant Williams for Derek White, a better complementary player. It's the same in the same mold, dirty work guy, can knock down the long ball, do the dirty work, except better. They exchange Robert Williams for Porzingis. Same mold, rim protector, rebounder, except I lose some of that defense. I get some of the offense back. But I don't lose all of the defense like what Damian Lillard did, like Milwaukee did with Damian Lillard and Jrue Holiday. They don't trade this for that. No, that's not what's going on. And the same logic with Jrue Holiday. When they trade Jrue Holiday, when they trade Marcus Smart for Jrue Holiday, same mold of player. Everything you do, I do it except better. And I'm in this, I'm basically in the same category with you. So I feel like when you're talking about a team like the Boston Celtics, who are molding their unit around their young guys or their core guys in Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they're molding them not with guys that they're just picking up like Julius. We're going to throw Julius Randle on the crew,
right.
Or we're going to, hey, little bit, how are you? They're going to throw Julius Randle on the crew. Or they're going to throw another superstar. No, they put the guys around these two guys to complement them and also to complement what their team is doing, as opposed to what the Miami Heat, what the Golden State Warriors were doing. And it's not going to be short-lived.
Yeah, and that's why I say I think Boston is now with players. Let's be honest. Al Horford, that's going to be difficult to replace him because he's 30-something years old. He's getting 37, maybe 38. The other guys are the other older guys are 29, 30. So they're and that's why I say a 3 to 5 year run. I think this team, and don't forget what happens when you start winning, right? What happens when you start winning? You're going to get guys in that Al Horford mode who are like, I want to win. So you're going to move on from him because he's 40 and someone else comes in.
For a little bit of money too, Tone, by the way.
For a little bit of money. That's right. And so you're going to start to get now. And listen, typically I'm scared, right? Because I got burnt by an old Gary Payton and Karl Malone, who, by the way, had Karl Malone stayed healthy. We're having a different conversation, but I think Boston is smart enough that they're not going to fall for that, right? They're, it's funny. Yeah, Tillman replaces Horford. I thought Tillman was 137 years old. He's like 20 something. He looked
at all. And you got Horford for one more season, Tone. You got him on the books for one. You got him on the cheap for 1 month. I think he's on the books for like close to $10 million. Which, I mean, I'll take it. Absolutely,
I'll take it. But that's not a lot of money in today's world.
No, it's not in today's NBA. It's not a lot of money. But you still do have to upgrade at that position. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
And then now, it's the silky segue that you're talking about. What's next for the Boston Celtics?
So let's. I pulled up their situation, right? So next year, this is why I say next year they're set up well. Not under contract is Luke Cornett, Svi Mikchili. He makes chili. Xavier Tillman Sr. Then you've got a couple of team options for Springer, Hauser, Ueda. I can't pronounce that name. Keita, okay. And then a player option for O'Shea Brissett. So everybody else, Holiday, Porzingis, Tatum, Brown, Derek White is actually on the books. He's fine. Al Horford, Pritchard, Jordan Walsh. Like they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They've got that core 7.
Sure. They'll be
locked up for next year. And then they've got that core 1, 2, 3, 4 even for the year after. So they're in that's when I say they're in good shape. Now,
and by the way, Tone, that not next year, in the 25, 26 season, that's when that NBC contract kicks in,
right? And
the money goes up,
and that's gonna and those deals, if you can believe it, Drew Holiday's 32, Porzingis is 30, Tatum, it's I think it's a team it's a player option 37, which he'll may or may not, if they give him the right extension, he'll whatever. And Jaylen Brown's 53, with the exception of maybe the 53. They're all going to look like pretty good deals, not for that caliber of player, because you got guys who are going to be making 50, 60 million by that point. So it's, you look at Drew Holiday making 30 and you're like, yeah, is he half the player of Jaylen Brown making 55? Yeah, I'm good with that. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't, when the money goes up, it looks good. So that's why I say, when you look at that, right, pick any other team. And I'll get to I know we have a list of questions. I'm going to just start running them down in a second. But like, pick any other team. Find me who's in a better spot. Give me one team that's in a better spot. Denver's not in a better spot, right? That's the last year's champions, not in a better spot. Milwaukee, isn't in a better spot. Who's in a better spot?
Phoenix is not in a better spot.
Phoenix.
No, Phoenix is in a terrible spot.
I wouldn't be surprised if Phoenix doesn't have the same 3 stars that they had this year, next year.
No. They have to do something. Minnesota, I feel like Minnesota's in a good spot, but
what's the talk in Minnesota? Well, we got to get rid of Cat. We got to move Cat for something. Like, they're going to change. Like, this is Anthony Edwards' team, so we got to figure out how to make Anthony Edwards that guy, and Rudy Gobert.
I don't think they need to move off Cat, Tone. To be honest with you, I don't think
they do either.
I do think that it's a mistake if they do that, but they're probably going to get that. They're probably going to get sucked in by the masses and
how old is Conley?
36.
They got to figure that out too.
Yes. So if you're talking about the teams that are in better spaces, the question that needs to be asked is, what does their money situation look like? Especially these teams that are in contention, like Sacramento. Sacramento just paid De'Aaron Fox, Sabonis. They got guys like,
they're going to lose Malik Monk.
They're going to lose Malik Monk, right?
And I think 2 years ago was a fluke.
I don't, Tone. I don't think, to be honest with you, I don't think it was a fluke. I think Sacramento's going to be in the middle of it again next year. I think they did sneak up on some people, but I do think that they're a legit, bona fide playoff team. Malik Monk getting hurt really screwed them up. That really screwed them up.
Exactly. So him getting hurt screwed him up. Imagine not having him.
Right. And with them not having him, now they got to retool. They have to do something.
I don't has Sacramento. Okay, you know how I say I trust Boston to fix their roster. I don't trust Sacramento. Do you trust Sacramento to fix their roster?
In this stage, this isn't the Sacramento from the 90s. The
It's
Sacramento
not?
that was just bumbling.
Because they had one good year.
Tripping over themselves. They've actually gotten better. They got Keegan Murray in the draft. Now they're probably going to lose Sasha. They're probably going to lose Sasha, which I don't even know what they got him for. The EuroLeague MVP is coming off the bench, one of the best long ball shooters, and he's not playing. I don't understand that. But when you're talking about teams that are in a better position than the Boston Celtics, from a money standpoint, there's not many that are better. And from a player standpoint,
from a roster, like from a money talent roster, like there's no.
They are set up. They, as of right now, they are set up.
And notice the teams you mentioned were all in the West.
Yes,
I'm talking about the East because I said coming out of the East, it should be Boston's.
So Philly's going to lose Tobias Harris. I think
that's a blessing in disguise.
Yes.
They should have gotten rid of him years ago.
I think Philly's going to lose Tobias Harris. I also think that they're going to lose Buddy Hield too. I think they're going to lose him. So in the process of them losing those two guys, they still got to upgrade. Joel Embiid's got to stay healthy. That's it more than anything. Now the talk is
putting your money on that?
No, I'm not at all. The way you feel about the Clippers, Tone, that's how I feel about Philly. That's exactly where I'm at with those guys, Joel Embiid specifically. But with that being said, if you look at what Philly has done, so you got Maxey, and they're building that unit around Maxey and Joel Embiid, whom I think Joel Embiid at 30 years old, Tone, I think he got 2 more years left at this level before he really starts to break down. That's it. That's as far as I'm going with him.
Philly fans are going to hate me when I say this. Trade Joel Embiid now.
I don't hate that.
You can.
I really don't hate that.
You could get a package that will listen. The process failed. You get the first step. The first step is admitting it. The process failed. Just get a bag as much as you can and start over because, like I said, I think this is Boston's conference for the next 2 to 3 years. I said 3 to 5, but I mean for sure 2 to 3 because that's where they're all under contract. And get rid of him because you're right. Joel Embiid probably only has with his health.
He said I remember hearing him say, "I got 6 or 7 more years to win an NBA championship." I don't think you
was that up 6 or 7 years ago.
No, he just said that like 2 or 3 months ago. He said that I got 6 or 7 more years to win an NBA championship. I'm thinking this dude ain't holding up for 6 or 7 more years.
I know. We've got there's 7 questions here. I know, and I apologize, but let's just. Fast, okay? Not like how we normally do where we talk for 20 minutes each.
Right.
Just fast. I'm just going to go down the East really quickly. So we already talked about Boston.
Yep.
New York.
I like their situation.
You like their situation? I hate their situation. I hate their situation because they've got money tied up in guys like Julius Randle. I already said they're going to lose OG Anunoby, which means they traded RJ Barrett and IQ for nothing.
Lose Hartenstein?
They're going to lose Hartenstein because the other teams can pay him so much more that he's got, like they can double what the Knicks can offer. So he'd be dumb not to go take that somewhere else. Now, if he stays, Mitchell Robinson, I love Mitchell Robinson.
Can he stay healthy though?
Stay healthy. So now you're going to have Jaylen Brunson and what? Right.
Julius
so that's why I think they're going to, I'm sorry, Knicks fans. I think that you're going to see a regression unless, hey,
Tone, if you right and OG Anunoby walks out the front door, that's going to be terrible.
There's an off season, right? There's an off season, so they could bring in someone else. But I'm just saying, as they're situated, I think they regress. The Milwaukee Bucks, well, they're in shambles. Okay, by mid next season, they're going to be paying another coach, and looking for trade partners for Dame Lillard if they don't trade him in the off season. Which trade him? You know what? Trade him to Miami and bring in Jimmy Butler. At least it'll give you one good year of something better than what you had, which is funny because they wanted that to be Dame, Butler, and Bam. But anyways, so I think Milwaukee's just in shambles. And let's be honest, if Giannis keeps getting hurt, right?
The indictment's coming down, Tone. The indictment is coming down.
He is built on his athleticism. He is not a skilled player. We have not seen him improve the skills at a fast enough pace to make up for any type of athletic decline. So I'm just saying. I
don't know if I agree with that, Tone. I do think his skill set has improved vastly. I don't think that his athleticism is the sole reason, even though he does play on a lot of flight and athleticism. But I do think his skill set has carried him as far
Can
as
he
he's gone.
shoot?
He had a
No,
respectable
is the
mid-range.
answer.
He had a respectable mid-range game. Yes, he did.
To carry a team to a championship. Remember, we're talking about championship aspirations.
Yes, we are.
Okay, so Milwaukee's not there. Cleveland. I know you love Cleveland, but
I do.
is Mitchell gone?
No, he's not.
Mitchell staying?
The reason why that's why Bickerstaff got fired. But they're going to lose Garland though, because Mitchell's going to sign that extension. They're going to lose Garland.
So okay, but it's Cleveland. I'm sorry. Listen, Cleveland might be in good shape, but
and I think they take the next step next year, Tony. I wouldn't be surprised if I saw them in the East Finals. That would not surprise me.
Yeah, losing to Boston. Okay, Orlando. Still too young, right?
They're the Oklahoma City Thunder of the East.
Yeah.
That's who they
Yeah.
are. They're not there
So
yet.
can they mature together and stay together? So far, we haven't seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Indiana, as fun as they're going to be to watch, there's still no defense.
Tone, how you feel about Sacramento? That's how I feel about Indiana. I think they were a fluke, to be honest with you.
Okay, and you know what?
I do.
I can't argue with that too much.
That's what I think.
Philadelphia, we've already talked about it nauseum, so we know that they're a disaster. Miami's, for all the Miami culture nonsense, like, guy, I said this on a different show, like, you can't build your team on the hope and prayers that you're going to get undrafted guys to step up all the time. It's just not going to work. It's not longevity. So I think Miami's run is run its course, and I love Bam, but if Bam's your number one, you're not in a good situation. And right now, he's their best player. Can
I say something really quickly, Tone? Really quickly, and let's just can we be honest for a second? Because that's what we do around.
Yes,
here.
we always.
Okay, in 2020, the 2019-2020 season, they got Jimmy Butler at 29 years old. It was 5 years ago. In those 5 years, you guys went to the NBA championship twice. You've been to the East Finals 3 times. Jimmy Butler's been an all-pro and he's been an all-league defender. He will be 35 on opening night. You've gotten everything you're going to get out of him. You're not getting any more. That's it.
No. And let's be honest. And the only reason they've gotten even that over the last few years is because he's smart and he doesn't go as hard as he should in the regular season, which puts them in a position where they're, an 8 seed, and then then it's tough when you're the 8 seed.
Yes.
Chicago, shambles. Someone earlier in the chat asked, what is Chicago going to do? And this is what Chicago's going to do. Status quo. They're going to re-sign a couple of people. They're going to let a couple of people walk because they get offered more money, and they're going to suck.
What's the plan in Chicago, Tone? Like
not
that's what I'm saying. Like everything that you talked about with the Celtics, what you talked about with the other teams in the Western Conference, there sounds like the one theme that I hear from you is there's a plan in there somewhere. Somewhere along the line, we're making up a plan of what direction we're going in. We're not just getting in the car and we're driving, Tone. We have nowhere, and wherever we go, then we'll get there. What's the plan in Chicago? Who are you building this unit around?
My wife and my twins, we do this thing every once, like we try to do it like once a summer.
Yep.
Where they have no school, we take a day off, whatever we're doing. We jump in the car. And we start driving, and we let the kids say, at any point, turn right, turn left, turn right, turn left, turn right, turn left, and we end up where we end up.
Yep.
That's Chicago.
That's what it sounds like they're doing in Chicago.
That's Chicago.
No, don't turn right here. Turn left.
Nope. Oh, hey, there's a pizza stand. Whoop, let's go.
Here's the difference, though, Tone, with that. The difference with that is, at some point, Dad goes, okay, we're not going that way. Dad takes over the wheel.
Actually, at some point, Mrs. Fluent says, hey, there's this spot. It's like 2 blocks on the left. Just make a left into,
Yes, there has to be an adult in the room that goes, okay, we're not doing that. No. Okay, We're going straight. Because we're going to end up falling off a cliff if we keep going the way that these kids ask us to.
Yeah. She found us this place that had, for the kids, the best chicken fingers I've ever tasted in my life, and these butter tarts that were to die for. But that's Chicago. But yes, unfortunately, they don't have a Fluent in the building, and so that's
Now you're more fluent.
why they're not. So that's Chicago. So Chicago's in shambles. Atlanta. Trae Young's not going to be in Atlanta.
You want to talk about that?
DeJounte Murray's not going to be in Atlanta. Like, Atlanta's in purgatory.
Every time
so you don't even want to talk about them. Okay.
I don't. Every time I see Atlanta, They are the chick that every time you see her in school, you're like, oh, God, I'm so sick of seeing this girl.
Brooklyn has Bridges out here trying to recruit other players on Twitter, and they're like, I ain't going to Brooklyn. Now you crazy.
I'm not coming to Brooklyn. No.
So how good does Brooklyn look right now?
And they have some money.
Josh Hart saying, nah, thanks. I'm good.
No, thank you. And it's right, and it's actually in the same vicinity. It's just right across the bridge.
Right.
You don't have to move. You don't have to go anywhere else. You can just come work over here. Josh Hart is like, no, I'm good.
No, yeah.
Nope, I'm straight. Nope, I'm good.
Yes, sorry, Lee.
Shouldn't have been talking shit.
You shouldn't have been. I don't even listen. I'm not going to say a word. I'm just to say that the city, and then be quiet because I will go on a 45-minute rant about how bad this is. So I'm just going to button my lip and say Toronto.
At least they got a plan, Tone. They do. It looks like they're building this unit around Scotty Barnes and RJ Barrett. It looks like they do have a plan, and I'm really interested to see. Toronto is a team that I'm interested to see which way they go in the draft. I am interested to see which way that they go in the draft because it looks like they're trying to get a foundation with Scotty Barnes and RJ Barrett. They seem to have something. They actually are looking at the map, Tone. They ain't just driving. They're actually looking at the map going, well, wait a minute. Maybe we should.
Yeah, the problem is they don't know how to read a map because they got the most overrated GM in the history of hoops. No, wait. Willie Mays? Willie Mays passed? Oh, man.
Passed. I'm sorry to hear that.
That's run like Mays, hit like hey. Willie Mays. Rest in peace, Willie. So Charlotte. Enough said? Cool. Washington. The best thing Washington did was get out of Bradley Beal's contract. That's yay.
At least they did that. Right?
Hey,
but
you know what?
But then they turned around and signed Jordan Poole. So they compounded that by signing Jordan Poole, who turned out to be way worse than what I thought. Right? Way worse than what I thought. So what am I going to do? So with the Eastern Conference, it looks like the Boston Celtics, barring any major injuries, it looks like they could run the table for a couple of years. Right? It looks like they could do that.
No, there's one. Why you're going to ignore the last team?
I'm not going to ignore the last team because the Detroit Pistons are exactly that, the last team. They are that. They are absolutely.
Do you remember when I told everybody they were going to finish last?
Tone, you threw a monkey wrench in the whole thing. You threw a monkey wrench. It was going to be 40 straight losses, Tone. You threw a monkey wrench in the whole thing when we ran down the schedule. We ran down the schedule, and Tone comes up with the crazy idea that the Detroit Pistons are going to lose to the Toronto Raptors.
No, they're going to beat the Toronto Raptors.
They're going to beat the Toronto Raptors. I'm like, Tone, no, they are not.
None of you believe me, and I told you that's the most Toronto thing to do. And of course, that's what happened. But no, I meant at the beginning of the year when they signed the Phoenix coach. You know his name?
Monty Williams.
Monty Williams, and I said Monty Williams came out and told you it's going to get worse before it gets better. This is going to be the last place team again, and everyone said you're crazy, Fluent. Remember you guys did on that show that you do in the afternoon. And they go and they do the power rankings or whatever, and I had Detroit last, and everyone's like, you're crazy. Who had them the lowest? Oh, Fluent had them last. He's crazy. Am I?
No.
Crazy as a fox. So we just ran down the entire Eastern Conference, and I'm sorry, the only team we said, hey, they're heading in the right direction was Cleveland. Just think about that for a minute. Cleveland. Now, Orlando has an opportunity.
Recent. And we're talking about like recent because Orlando's still a time away. Because
that's what I said. Yeah, they're 2 years away from being this year's OKC, which means they'll probably do it next year just to prove me wrong. But that being said, OKC didn't, a great regular season, but they didn't do anything. So when I say Boston could go to 3 straight NBA finals, I don't think I'm that crazy.
Barring any major injury, I don't know if it's ridiculous.
Yeah, of course. Listen, you can't foresee, Jaylen Brown or Jayson Tatum. I don't even want to say the words, right? You can't foresee that happening. But of course, if that happens, who knows? Like the only thing stopping them is themselves, right? It's injury. It's them trying to say, "Oh, this is my team." No, it's my team.
I don't think we're gonna have that.
No, I don't get that from this guy who you want to make a superstar. I'm telling you, he's not. He's a star player. He's not a superstar player. But Jayson Tatum, did the funniest thing ever when he literally he tried here's the problem. He's trying to be everybody. You're basically a weak Eastern Conference. Yes, Leaf, it is a weak Eastern Conference.
We did it. We did it.
I believe the line is anything is possible. But
Oh my God, we did it.
I know everybody will wonder what would happen if we didn't win.
I guess we'll never know.
I guess we'll never know.
And then he took it a step further. So he went from KG to Kanye.
Hey, you know what? I've got this water.
And he finishes strong. He finishes strong with the Bayou Barbie.
What they gonna say now? What they gonna say now?
He's so corny. Like, he is so corny. I love Jayson Tatum. He is so corny. And then he took off and tried to recreate Kobe's picture in the locker room. Where he's cuddled up.
I did see. I saw that, and I had no words for that, Tone. What I do know is that they did win it, and I do think that this answers some questions. You might think that this actually poses more questions, but I do think
I think it answered questions about the Celtics, like, can they win? Yes. Is Jayson Tatum a bona fide superstar? I don't know that they answered, and I think more questions arose. So let me run through it, because I know you sent two groups of them, but let me start with the first or the last batch, because there was like 7. Is Jaylen Brown and Tatum a conversation?
To be honest with you, Tone, I don't think it is. I don't. Don't get me wrong. I think that Jaylen Brown played great in the playoffs, and I think that what he did for his unit really helped. He stepped up defensively. The job that he did on Luka, I think that was instrumental in them winning the NBA championship. But I still think that Jayson Tatum is better than him. I think that what he does for that unit is more than what Jaylen Brown does. I think his skill set supersedes Jaylen Brown's, and I think that the way Jayson Tatum plays allows Jaylen Brown to be who he is. Last night is a prime example of, I'll deal with this guy, you score the rest of the points. That's what I saw last night. I don't think Jaylen Brown, when you're talking about a guy whose skill set is with the guys that with the amount of guys that he plays with and his skill set, I don't think it's compared to Jayson Tatum. I think Jayson Tatum is the better player.
But we've already established that your skill set, your talent, your bag doesn't mean anything unless you produce. And I'm not saying that Tatum doesn't produce. He absolutely does produce. I think, however, that we're going to have a situation where, barring, by the way, Drew Holiday's 15 and 11 was pretty impressive too.
Yes, it was.
Shooting. Unless Jayson Tatum has an MVP caliber season, I'm not saying he has to win the MVP. I'm saying an MVP, like, he needs to be in that conversation. He needs to get votes. I think this will persist. And like I said, I hope it doesn't Shaq and Kobe them.
I don't think it will.
I don't think it will either. I think both of them have the right mindset. I don't know if you know this, like Jaylen Brown, a lot of people don't talk about. He is like super smart. Like,
he is
super smart. And the reason I bring that up is intelligent people tend to be very confident and aware of themselves and smart enough to say, hey, this is the best. I'm not going to find a better situation than this. So, and Tatum doesn't seem, from his corniness, like a guy who's going to get into that. He's like, I'm just happy to win. So I think you're right. I don't think it pulls them apart. And they're both going to get, like I said, they're both going to get $300 million contracts. So I think they're good. But I think, like I said, unless barring he has an MVP conversation, the masses will make it a thing. But when we look at the history of Jayson Tatum, it's going to get lost a little bit. Like, when I say lost, I'm talking about 30 years from now.
Right.
Because it's, well, look at the team he had.
But Tone, we still play, but the tide has turned. So now we've gone to a positionless league. Jayson Tatum still playing at an all-pro level. Jaylen Brown, on the other hand, has not. And I don't like the fact.
Does this change that narrative?
And that's what I'm talking about. That right there is what I'm talking about. It's not like Jayson Tatum was bad in the playoffs. He averaged 31 a game on the road in the playoffs. I don't know if you guys know that. He averaged 31 a game on the road in the playoffs. He averaged 20 and 10 in closeout games this year. That's
But he
more than
averaged
Jaylen
17
Brown.
in his first 2 games at home in the NBA Finals.
Yes, he did.
And
yes,
shot 30%.
100%. Yes, 100% he did.
So let's look at that too.
And I understand how important scoring is. 100% I do. But when you're talking about in totality and what everything that Jayson Tatum has done moving forward, now we've moved forward to a positionless league. Jayson Tatum is still playing at an all-pro level. Jaylen Brown is not. I understand.
I think the NBA world agrees that Tatum is the better player. What I'm saying is, that the narrative is driven by the masses, and the masses will say, you got the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, you got the Larry Bird? Is that the Larry Bird Award? Larry Bird Trophy? Funny. And the Finals MVP, which is the Michael Jordan Award. Is it not? No, Bill Russell, excuse me.
Yes.
Yeah, Bill Russell.
2 Celtics. How about that?
Oh yeah, I didn't think of that. It was, yeah. And both of those went to Jaylen Brown. So people are going to start to say, "Hey, Jason's great, but okay." So that's all I'm saying. Is I think it becomes a conversation whether we like it or not. I think it becomes a conversation. Where do the Celtics rank among the last 25 champions?
Now that's a good question, Tom. That is a damn good question.
Shall we run down the last 25? I know you probably do. You do it from memory.
So Tone, so the three-peat Lakers, 2000, 2001, 2002. No. They're not there. How about the 03 Spurs?
No. No.
So you got a young Tony Parker who's in year 2. You got an old David Robinson who's over basically at that point. Yep. You got an inexperienced Steven Jackson. You got Tim Duncan, who is arguably the best player in the league at that point. I feel like at that point he was the best player in the league.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's a no.
Okay, so no with them. Then you got the 04 Pistons.
No.
Arguably the best defense the NBA has ever seen.
No. Offensively, Boston, sure, but I think no.
So Detroit's out. Okay. Then you have
San Antonio.
05, you got the 05 Spurs again, who I think they were better in 05 than they were in 03.
Agreed.
Okay.
Shout out. Who's that? Tiago Splitter?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Ginobili.
Yeah, Manu. Yeah.
This one gets a little trickier, Tone. How about that 06 Heat team?
See that one.
Shaq is in year 14.
I know that
he's still elite. Shaq is still elite. He's in year 14. He's still elite. Dwayne Wade is better than anybody on. So I won't even argue that.
I'm going to take the best player in this one.
Yeah,
and say I'm going to go with the Heat. But that one you can make an argument.
I think we can have a conversation about that. I think we can have a conversation about that because this team was actually put together. That 06 team was put together kind of like a super team. They signed Antoine Walker. They signed Antoine Walker. They got James Posey. They signed Gary Payton. Right, they brought back Alonzo Mourning the year before. So, with all of that being said,
it's close.
I don't think it's a wash, but I do think that 06 team is better.
I'm still picking them, but yeah, I'm not. Yeah. So then you got the 06, 07 Spurs again.
Right. I think that Tony Parker was much better. Duncan had moved over to the 5. Ginobili was better. I'm taking that 07 Spurs team over the Celtic team, but I ain't taking them by a lot. But I am taking that 07 Spurs team.
Well, how do you feel about Boston versus Boston? Because you got the 07, 08 Celtics. That's the big 3.
I think they roughed them up, Tom. I do. I think that 08 team. I think that 08 team roughs up this 2014.
Could you imagine Porzingis trying to bang with KG?
You saw what happened with Gasol. He destroyed him. So what do you think is going to happen with? Now, don't get me wrong. I think that their skill sets are similar. in terms of him being a stretch 5, a stretch 4. I think they both got the same skill set. But KG was just an animal. He was just a straight animal.
Don't even bring it up. So we got Lakers. Let's go straight to the 2011 Dallas Mavericks. And I actually, yeah, go ahead.
I think that's a conversation with the 2011 Dallas Mavericks. Defensively, I think they were on par with the Boston Celtics. Dirk Nowitzki was great in those playoffs. He wasn't great in the finals. He closed games. You keep games close, and I'll close it. That's what he did.
Hey, listen, in the finals, he outplayed the best player from the other team.
Right. And I won't argue that. I'm not listening to Leaf. Leaf, stop talking to me, man. We're working over here, Leaf. I'm not listening to Leaf, man. I won't. I will not listen to Leaf. I'm not.
It's clear.
If you bring him up here, I'm not listening to him. I'm not listening to a word. He's nothing but a hater. That's it. I'm good listening to Leaf.
Have you guys had a moment since last time? No?
I'm good listening to Leaf. But anyway, so the 2012
Mavericks.
Okay, we'll take the Dallas Mavericks, sure. The 2012 Heat. I think Wade was
Heat and Heat. You can't.
I think
James was so good at that point.
Yeah, James was just so much better than Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Just James alone, he was so much better than both of those guys. I won't argue that. Right?
Then you got 13-14 Spurs again, and this one now you're adding in the emergence of Kawhi. I think that puts the Spurs over the top.
The most beautiful basketball I'd ever seen in my whole life, Tone, in 2014. Almost brought me to tears. I think they smoked that 24 Celtic team. I don't think they beat them. I think they smoked them.
14-15 Golden State
Warriors
would lose to this Boston Celtics team in 5.
You think they smoked them, Tone?
Smoke them. Smoke them. Because I think Drew Holiday picks up. Look, no one's stopping Steph, but I think Drew Holiday gives Steph all he can handle. Mm-hmm. I think the combination of White and Brown make Clay want to rethink his life, and if your third option is Draymond Green, I'm feeling pretty good about myself. So yeah, I that team, the fact that team, let's be honest, that team won because Cleveland was banged up.
Draymond was in year 3 at that point, right? Draymond had just showed up. Clay, I think he was in year 4. Steph was in year 6 at that point.
That team might be the most. That team might be one of the most overrated teams we've seen in the last 20 years because of what they did after. Like people forget, like they made it to the finals, but okay. I don't know. I'm not as high on that team. I think the Celtics team
beat them. Okay.
Them.
Okay.
The Cleveland team in 15-16. Listen, I'm not picking against a team that beat a 73-win team. So
I'm not either. Neither am I. And they were at full strength too with both Love and Irv. Yeah. So no, I'm not picking against them. James dominates that series.
Yeah. Yeah. He's averaging 45.
Yeah, he dominates that series.
Then you've got 17-18 Warriors.
16-17 Warriors.
Well, no. I'm saying 16, 17, 17, 18. I'm putting both years together.
None of those Warrior teams.
Yeah. Gone.
I don't think any of those Warriors teams are better. I mean, I don't think any of those Warriors teams the Celtics are better than, including 19 when KD got hurt. I still don't think they're better than. I don't.
So the Toronto Raptors.
That was a damn good Raptors team, Tone. Holy man, that was a damn good Raptors team, yo. If Leonard stays, they back in the finals in 20. At minimum, they are back in the finals in 20.
100%, especially with the fact that they had a nice long break in between.
Yes.
So he gets healthy and then he can go on a run. Forget it. Like that, people forget in the bubble, the Raptors without Kawhi, without Danny Green, still played. I want to say Boston. They lost to Boston. They still played them very tough.
Yes, they did.
Played them very tough.
Mm-hmm.
And it sucks too because that was the year, the following year they had to play 72 road games. Yeah, they're on the road there was no home. They played in Tampa.
They were in Tampa.
So I'm gonna go Raptors, but that might be a homer pick. So I'll let you.
I'm taking Toronto in that series because Leonard is the difference.
Los Angeles. That's the LeBron and AD. They're not better than that team.
They weren't better than the Lakers.
This is interesting. The Bucks game because you got Drew Holiday going up against older Drew Holiday.
That's the question that I wanted to ask, Tone. So the 21 Drew Holiday versus the 24 Drew Holiday. Now the 21 Drew Holiday is younger. a little bit more athletic. The 24 Drew Holiday, smarter, right? Smarter. Not as I think he's still athletic. I think he's smart. I think he's a better scorer at this point. He's a better long ball shooter.
But I think that version of Giannis, they'd have no answer for.
I think Middleton is the difference, though. If you slow down, I think if Jaylen Brown can slow down Middleton, I think that's the difference in that series. Because Giannis has actually shown us what happens when you have to you got to go to him in the meat and potatoes of games. Middleton was the guy.
Yeah.
Drew Holiday were the guys who were basically closing games, going to the stripe, making big shots.
That's why they brought in Dame, right?
Sure,
they figured he needed
a So I feel like if Drew can slow down Middleton, I think you got a shot at beating them. I'm gonna take the 24 Celtics over the 21 Bucks.
I'm taking the Bucks over the Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
This is an interesting one because Golden State beat Boston.
Yep.
Different Boston team, mind you.
Yep.
Do you think they beat this version?
Steph was too much.
All right,
Steph
so we're still
was too
going
much.
Denver? Last year, Denver?
What Joker did? No, I'm taking Denver over Boston. That Denver team, yeah.
It's interesting because I think Joker obviously goes bananas, but I think they have an answer for everybody else on Denver. I think they have an answer for MPJ. I think they have an answer for Jamal Murray. I think they have an answer for Aaron Gordon.
You still have to match Joker's production, though, Tone, as the best player. And I think that's where the separator is, right there.
And that's you took the words right out of my mouth because I was saying, and I think that's why I still pick Denver. But yeah. I think it's closer than maybe a lot of people give credit for. Yeah. And then obviously this year we know that
right. Boston. So they're bottom five, probably. I think they're bottom. I think they're bottom five.
I think collectively we had two teams since 2000 that so when people say, is this an all-time great team? I'm like, they're not even an all-time great team in the last 2 decades. How could they? They're not even an all-time great team in the last 10 years. Like in the last 10 years, I think we picked two teams. Mm-hmm. So they're, at best, there's 8 in the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. They're 18th in the last 20 years. Right. How are you going to put this team as an all-time great team? That's so that answers kind of the next question. Are they an all-time great Celtic team?
Mm-hmm.
Well, can you be an all-time great Celtics team if you're nowhere near an all-time great team, period?
Well, they weren't better than the 86 team. I don't think they were better than that 84 team. I think they would have gave that 84 team a run for their money. I do think that. With Cedric Maxwell, I think they would have gave them a run for their money.
Yeah, of course. And they would give Bill Russell's team they'd probably spank them, but you're talking about 60 years removed.
But I'm not talking about. Here's the thing, Tony. I'm not talking about. Let's take off the table them playing against each other. Let's do that for a second, and let's just discuss what they produced. And that 86 team, I mean, they had 5 Hall of Famers. They won 67 games. They marched through the playoffs. The Lakers threw a monkey wrench in it, losing to Houston. That's what they did, because it would have capped off them being the best team ever if, right? It would have capped off them being the best team ever if the Lakers would have ended up seeing them in the finals, because I think they would have beat the Lakers that year, because I think they were just better. That 84 team, I mean, Bird finished, I think Bird won the league MVP that year. In addition to Bird winning the league MVP, I think he was an all-league defender that year too. And if he wasn't an all-league defender, he was an all-league defender the year before. So he was playing at an all-league defender level. So that Celtic team, which was comprised of a bunch of great role players, so Bird, I mean, they just got DJ. I dug Gerald Henderson. I feel like as a collection, I feel like as a collection, that was a damn good Celtic team.
I don't know if people will agree or disagree, but this is the way I look at it, and it's my opinion, and so it's fine. Is that if I'm comparing all-time great teams, I'm not comparing who would win if they played,
right?
Because 90% of the time, 95% of the time, I'm going to pick the more modern version of the team to beat the older version of the team in almost every situation. That being said, the way that I look at it is who dominated their rivals, their teams that they were playing against more. And that's why I would say this team, you can't compare them to the 80s Celtics, to the 2000 Celtics, to the 60s, 70s Celtics, because especially the 60s and 70s Celtics, like I said, I think this team mops the floor with that team, but they nowhere near dominated like that those guys did their contemporaries. So that's how how I would compare all-time greats when I'm saying one team, right? Like if I'm going to say who's a better team, the 2000 Lakers or the 80 Lakers,
87 Lakers
or 87 Lakers. Well, I think the 2000 Lakers beat them, or the Lakers beat them if they played, but like who was more dominant?
Right.
Actually, I still think 2000, but or Kobe and Gasol's Lakers. I don't think they beat them, but so that's what I'm saying for all-time greats. So that's the all-time great situation. Where does the Celtics team? So that's that of the last 50 years. Okay, we talked that. All right, so let's go to the other side of the coin, because we've talked a lot about Boston and very little about Dallas.
Let's discuss them. Sure.
What's next for Dallas?
Well, let's start.
Here's a team that, let's be honest, like exceeded expectations. Right. There was a point where they were in the play-in. And they made we talked about adding Gafford. We talked about adding PJ Washington, and they had a great last 20 games and shot up the standings to the 5th seed. From that 5th seed, right? They shocked me in every round, beating the Braves, beating.
I tried to talk you off that hill, Tone. I tried to. You just weren't buying it. I knew that they were going to beat them. And knowing you, I thought that I could talk you off that hill. I did, knowing how you felt about the Clippers. I was trying to tell you, Tone, the Clippers are not going to beat these guys, and you just wouldn't buy it. I didn't understand why.
I thought at some point they got to win a series, but anyways, right? They shocked the world to go to the finals. We saw the emergence of Lively as a rookie who just everybody thought he was a project to begin the year, and he still is, but he played, I think, above where he was supposed to. Kyrie up until the finals looked fantastic, and the combo of Luka and Kyrie that I questioned all season. Remember, that's what I always said. I said that was my issue with them. Looked great until the finals. We saw PJ Washington knocking down shots, Gafford playing his role down low. This was the number 1 defensive team, number 1 rebounding team in the last 20 games of the season. But the way they looked in the finals, is it just because Boston was so much better, or did they just accentuate all the flaws that we thought they had all season, or both?
I think both can be true. That unit is built around Luka's skill set. That unit is built around Luka being the primary ball handler, the primary distributor, the primary playmaker, and guys like Gafford, Lively, PJ Washington, guys like that who aren't able, Tim Hardaway Jr., who aren't able to create their own offense. Guys like that, that's what that team is comprised of, because that's Luka's game. Luka is ball dominant. Luka is a guy who needs the basketball in his hands. He can't play off the basketball. However, when he gets Kyrie Irving, I do think that gives him a break. So now he's got a guy who he can throw the basketball to and get off the ball and allow this guy to create his own offense. The flip side to that, Tone, with him being able to rest, Luka's got to take better care of his body. I want to start there, Tone, because we're talking about a guy who at the top, one of the main reasons why he ran out of gas, because Luka just doesn't look like he's in the kind of shape it takes to go deep into the playoffs consistently and be viable consistently. Tone, you'll look at the box score. I don't mean you specifically, but you'll look at the box score and you'll see that Luka went 29 and 12 and think he got busy yesterday. I think 10 of those 29 points came when they were down by 20.
Yeah, no, he did not.
So the fact that the game was already out of hand, and the fact that those guys had already been outplayed, that didn't really matter to me. It didn't really matter at all. With that also being said, this Dallas team if they're going to build this team around Luka's skill set, Luka has to get himself in better shape, and he's got to commit defensively more than anything. One of the main reasons why the Portland Trailblazers were not able to go deep into the playoffs and get to the NBA Finals because Damian Lillard never committed on the defensive end of the floor. Luka will give you stretches where he'll show some commitment on the defensive end. What he won't do is he won't do it consistently. Irv actually gave me consistent defensive effort. Irv is not Sidney Moncrief. He's not Drew Holiday, and I'm not asking him to be that. What I am asking you to do is I am asking you to commit on the defensive end. Tone, when you have a championship unit, you just told me yourself, talking about this Boston Celtic team, how everybody was woven into the system. One of the things that has to happen when you're on a championship team is that everybody has to be bought in. I don't think Luka is all the way bought in. I don't. And it's obvious by one, how he takes care of his body, and two, where he is committed on the defensive end of the floor. I don't think he's bought in. And I'm not buying the logic that because the unit that he has and the guys that he had aren't up to snuff, because those guys play just as hard, if not harder, for him. I don't think he's bought in all the way. I don't. And until he does that, this is the unit that we're going to be looking at. And I think that they got themselves in a pretty good position this year. I don't think next year is going to be that. I don't think next year is going to be that kind. I don't.
If I'm reading between the lines, you're saying what I'm about to say, which is Dallas just peaked.
That was the next thing I was going to tell you, Tone. I don't want them to make the mistake that the 21 Hawks did, or that the 19 or the 19 Trailblazers did, which is run it back, because the Western Conference is going to get better. The Western Conference is going to get better.
Not only can they not run it back, they need to come off of Kyrie.
You out on Irv?
I was never in on Irv. I think we all got tricked by a nice run to the finals. They didn't look good all season. They did not look good guys. Like, again, I brought up the point that they were a play-in team up until the last stretch of the season.
They were.
They just went on a run. They just went on a run.
They did.
So let's you say this a lot. When people show you who they are, believe them.
Is this who Dallas is?
This is who do you think's more Dallas? The 75% of Dallas that we saw, or the ones that went on a run, who got hot at the right time? So I think they've peaked. I don't think you're gonna. If this team stays together, you are going to be very disappointed next year when they're out in the second round, and the year after that they're out in the first round, and you say, "What's wrong with Dallas? What happened?"
They're out in the first round this year, or they're out in the first round next year. Sure.
Listen, this year might have been the biggest season for you. Always talk about matchups. This was the biggest season for injuries and matchups, because you said this not once. I'm stealing your line, not twice, not three times. The Lakers, had they faced OKC in the first round instead of Denver, we're probably seeing a whole different outcome, right? If Denver didn't meet Minnesota, because that's just a bad matchup for them, there was just so many instances where the matchups dictated the series more so than who's the better team, that I think, just the same way. Look, I'm going to do the same thing I did to Boston. Boston was very lucky that they faced all these injured teams. I think Dallas was very lucky that they got the Braves, who, shame on me for trying to believe in them. Why do I always forget who they played in the second round?
Oklahoma City.
A very young OKC team that just looked like up until that point, they looked great, but they looked like a very young team in that second round. And then a Minnesota team that just, Anthony Edwards looked like, hey, we just beat Denver. We won the chip. And that was like they were happy that that's what they did. And they forgot, as Kobe always says, job finished.
No, it's
not finished.
No,
and they thought it was. And we talked about that when it happened. We said, I don't like the way they celebrated. They looked like we'd won something, and they did nothing at that.
You did come off of that, Tone, because initially you thought that the winner of the Minnesota-Denver series is winning the NBA championship.
And I didn't. And the way they reacted, I'm sorry, you can't
come off that.
Can't do that. So that's why I'm saying, like, this is their peak. So I think if they don't look, people are gonna say, well, we made it to the finals. We got to, we got to run it back, especially if they don't if they do make a change and then they don't make to the finals, that's what they'll blame. But I'm telling you right now, you keep this unit as is, you're gonna be really disappointed next year. Really disappointed next year.
I think it starts with Luka. I do, Tone. I think it starts with Luka, and I think it ends with Luka. I think Luka has to get more bought in. I do. I think Luka has to get more bought into what they're doing in Dallas as a defensive team, as an offensive team. I still don't like the fact that he has to do as much as he has to do, but that's Luka's game. That's who Luka is. He's the guy who plays with the basketball in his hands. He's James. He's James Harden. He's James. He's that guy who doesn't play.
Those guys lose more than they win, like significantly more. Right? They put up really good numbers. Don't get me wrong, and people are going to say how great they all are, in some varying degrees. Like James Harden significantly better than LeBron James significantly better than James Harden, but those guys, that's not success. Right? Success in the NBA forever has been do what you do, find people to do the other things so that you can do what you do. That's what works better. Right. I'm not saying that you can't win the other way, but it works significantly better and more often when you just say, "Hey, you go get rebounds, you do this, I'm going to score, you do that." Like that's what, because it's a team game. It's not like they're playing one-on-one. So again, it's happened. They've won, but not as much.
Well, Tone, you ran down the Western Conference, so
the East. You
ran down the Eastern Conference. If you think about it, so the three teams at the top of the West this year: Minnesota, Oklahoma City, and Denver. I think they're going to be back next year. I think they'll be right back in the middle of it. I think Houston's going to be a problem next season.
They're going to be better.
I think Memphis is going to be right back in the middle of it because they get their whole crew back next year.
I don't think so, but okay. I'll give you that.
So now I'm talking about teams like the Clippers. I'm not sure what Phoenix is going to do. I don't think that Golden State's going to be around anymore, to be honest with you. I think they're over. The Lakers, New Orleans, Sacramento. These are the teams that I'm thinking about. And I'm sure I left somebody out when I'm talking about the Western Conference.
Well, let's run it down. Because I want the standings from last year, because I want to run them down in order that they finished. Okay, so we got OKC. You already mentioned Denver, Minnesota. They're all going to be there. I'm not worried about the.
I think that's your top three next year again, Tone.
Yeah, I agree with that. Phoenix, who knows? The Lakers, I'd love to think that they're going to do something and be better. New Orleans, Sacramento, Golden State.
I think they're over, Tone. I do. I think Golden State is over. I do.
It depends, right? Like I think Clay is gone.
They're going to lose Clay in free agency.
Yeah, yep. Draymond could be shipped out. So it depends what they bring in next to Steph, right? So, but I think I tend to agree with you. Utah, Memphis, San Antonio, Portland. So what does that mean for Dallas? It means Dallas is going to be in the same kind of situation they are this year, as a kind of 4, 5, maybe 6 seed. But remember, to get to the 5 seed, they had to go on an incredible run. So this is a 5. Let's be honest. This is a 5 or 6 seed. Do you really think a 5 or 6 seed is going to go back-to-back runs to the final?
No, I don't.
They're not. So they have to do something to put them into that top 3, and it's not stay where you are.
I think that they upgrade. I do think that they upgrade at that position with Derrick Jones Jr. I don't think that they have to. I don't think they got to make a splash, but I do think that they upgrade at that position. I think they come off Tim Hardaway this summer. I don't think he's going to be around at the end of the summer. I do think that they get another shooter. Derek Lively comes back better.
If Derek Lively comes back better, they pick up like a Malik Monk. And then something there'll be. I still don't think that puts them into the Minnesota, Denver.
No, it doesn't.
OKC conversation. I
don't think so.
Right, and that's why I say, as tough as it's to hear, Kyrie's the odd man that it's like I can get most for him right now. I'm always saying this. this is your opportunity to upgrade, get younger, get better.
Mm-hmm.
While his stock is still high, because if you wait and you let them play 2 more years together, and now they're older, they're run down, they get knocked out in the first, second round a couple of times, the stock drops. It just does, and now you're scrambling to, now what do we do?
Unless you think Luka is coming back next year, he's going to be in great shape, and he's committed to this unit defensively, committed. Where again, Tone, I'm not asking for Drew Holiday, I'm not asking for Sidney Moncrief, I'm not asking for Dennis Johnson. But if you're talking about a guy he's going to be what I saw when I saw Joel Embiid show up to camp, he was 20 pounds lighter, and something like that, where he's committed on defense, he's taking better care of his body, and I'm going to take this team and I'm going to be the staple of what we are. Unless that's going to happen, I'm looking at Dallas as a team in the middle of the road. I'm looking at them as a 5-6, maybe playing team.
Do you know what every dominant ball dominant, offensive juggernaut player needs next to him on the perimeter?
A shooter,
a defender,
and a defender. Sure.
It's the recipe for success 9 out of 10 times. Yet we want to put in another guy next to him who isn't that. Kyrie's not a defender. Kyrie is not a shooter. I'm sorry, he's not. He is a, he's got great handle. He's got the most incredible layup package I've ever seen. Cool. It's just not long-term success.
Well, Tone, if you think about the past champions, who did Denver have as a defender on their wing?
KCP, right?
KCP.
Yes.
How about the Golden State Warriors?
Initials.
Yeah. How about the Golden State Warriors? Who did they have on their wing?
Back in the day, Clay
and Andrew Wiggins,
and then Andrew in the last one, Andrew Wiggins, and before that, Iggy as well as Clay when they were younger.
Milwaukee. Who did they have on their wings?
Drew Holiday.
Absolutely. And then the Lakers. Who did they have? Caruso. James. Caruso, James.
But they also had AD down low too as a defender. Yeah.
But to your point, when you're talking about perimeter defenders, Kawhi Leonard was an elite perimeter defender in 19. He was elite.
Go down the list. It's like I said,
down the list.
There's going to be exceptions, but look at the majority of the time. That's what it is.
That's what you need in order to win.
So this isn't knocking Kyrie. I think Kyrie made a lot of the doubters kind of be like, oh, okay, this year, and deservedly so, because they were being really hard on him, I think, because of non-basketball stuff, to be honest. But it's just, that's not what wins championships. And again, that's what we're talking about. We're not saying they're not going to be a good team, they're not going to make the playoffs. No, they're going to do all that. But we're talking about, what do you need to win a championship? Because Luka, at the end of the day, he's going to put up a ton of points, he's going to put up a ton of assists, he's going to get his rebounds, but we're going to look at Luka and say, yeah, but he never won.
And why didn't he win?
And he didn't win because of him.
Yep.
Now a little bit because of him, because he doesn't play defense, but that's on Dallas, right? Just like what they did for Tatum and Brown.
Sure.
Is around them. Listen, we always knock these players for having help. No one won. Not got there. No one won without help. And we started the show and you were talking about, we talked a little bit, like we compared it to football. No one thinks, when you say some of the greatest teams in NFL history, no one brings up the Buffalo Bills.
Nobody.
But they're the only team in the history of football to go to 4 straight Super Bowls. You know why no one talks about them? Because they didn't win any of them.
That's wild.
Right? They never won. But if they would have gone like the Heat, if they would have gone to 4 and won those middle 2,
or one, or just one,
sure. But for sure, the middle 2, we'd be talking about them as one of the greatest ever. We would. I guarantee you, we'd be talking about them as one of the greatest teams ever. So the next thing is, what did they do wrong? But I think we touched on that. What did wrong and what's next? Oh, hold on. I need to send something very quickly, but let me ask you a question while I do that. Is Kyrie Irving, since we've been talking about Kyrie, is he not the same without LeBron James?
Nope. Not in terms of winning, no. In terms of winning, It's just not the same. And what we also do, Tone, is we forget that was 8 years ago. It's not like that was 2 or 3 years ago that James wasn't around. That was 8 years ago when they did that. So that's almost a decade when they did that. Kyrie Irving was a way different player. He was in a way different mindset. I like where he is mentally today, where he looks like he's at peace. He looks like he's at peace. He looks like he's more grounded. And I think that's great. I 100% think that's great. But the same caliber of player that he was 8 years ago, more athletic, being able to create easier shots, because what I can't do, Tone, is I can't, for the life of me, I can't understand why people don't understand the difference between generating good looks and making tough shots, and why those two things are not the same. Because they're not. Those two things are not the same.
Kyrie is the most overrated player I think I've seen in my lifetime, because he is so talented and so skillful with the basketball that people think he's something that he isn't. And I'll give you an example. He's the most gorgeous woman you've ever seen, but there ain't two brain cells in that head to run together.
Man, you ain't check her credit. You don't know what kind of friends she running
She's
around
a 315 credit.
You don't know where she lives. Like when you find out, when you finally go over to her apartment, it's books all over the place and clothes all over the place. The place is a mess.
She doesn't have an apartment. She lives in a cardboard box.
Oh my
god! She dropped out of elementary school.
Oh my god! I'm not gonna go that far with Irv, because I think Irv is a little bit more. I think Irv is a little bit more than that.
I'm exaggerating to make a point. And I'm exaggerating to make the point because he's so good.
Right?
Like she's so good looking that you're like, I want to buy her things. But
there's no substance there.
And
I feel like now we're in a space with Irv where there is a lot more substance. And I feel like because he saw how difficult it was to be the leader, I think that he saw how difficult it was to have the reins and realized that, damn, this is a lot harder than what I thought it was. I think that grounded him. I think that humbled him to being I feel like to being a better player, a more in control player, as opposed to, I want to go out and do this on my own, which, for all intents and purposes, I think that's good that you go find out who you are. I absolutely believe that you can go find out who you are. But but when you actually do that and you see how difficult it is, then you find out that, man, this is a lot harder than what I thought it was. What up?
What's going on, fellas? First things first, the East is trash. Not because of the players, but because of the majority of the GMs.
Now we're talking.
The majority of the GMs in the East are terrible and have been terrible for some of them teams over a decade. The Wizards haven't been good in over a decade. Detroit hasn't been good in over a decade. Charlotte hasn't been good.
Mike, how do you hand over Porzingis to the Celtics for some picks? Are you kidding me? You handed him over.
Look at the extra crispy and a 6-pack.
You kidding me?
Sir.
How do you hand over Drew Holiday to the Trailblazers for Damian Lillard and some picks?
You can't handle the truth.
You don't do that. No, we're not doing that. Now I understand why they did it. They're trying to get better and they're trying to hold on to Giannis. Milwaukee. They were trying to prove to Giannis this probably was the best player that they've had since Jabbar.
Do you know what that's like? You know what that's like? That's like going out to a bar and picking a fight with a dude to show your girl that you're tough because she didn't think you're tough, and then you get punched right in the face and knocked out. Like that's just dumb.
Fight to pick. That's a dumb.
Knock your glasses off. Knock over some drinks. That's a bad look.
That's a dumb fight to pick.
But I'm glad you said that because that's what I was trying to get to earlier. Is that the Boston as an organization is just so far ahead of everybody else, because you're right. Charlotte stinks. Washington stinks. I'm sorry. Toronto stinks. Detroit stinks. All of these teams are hoping. Philadelphia stinks. I'm sorry. You you got to look at their track record, right? Like they chose Tobias Harris over Jimmy Butler. Like, no, that's dumb.
That was dumb.
So everybody knew that. Like, casuals were like, that seems weird. Yeah, because it's dumb. And that's the problem. You're right. Is these guys get their jobs because
That's suspicious. That's weird.
They know, and they make bad decision after bad decision after bad decision, and I don't know, and maybe it's easy to look from here and say it's not that hard, but it's they make it harder than it should be, and you know why? And I'll give you a perfect example, and then sorry, Jay, I'll let you say what you gotta say, because I saw a guy here in Toronto who thinks he's a genius and made one move that made everyone else think he was a genius. And then as the people in my generation from the South say, and then he got a little too big for his britches. And it was so irrational and so difficult to deal with that I've personally spoken with 4 assistants to the GM and 1 GM who said, you can't even deal with him. Because he wants everything for nothing, and he thinks he's smarter than you, and that he's going to outsmart you, and he's going to get Giannis for 6 donuts. Like and you can't even trade with him anymore. And you still see certain GMs, like you see the Knicks. The Knicks are suing them, and then they trade OG for who they might lose for nothing, or are going to lose for nothing for IQ and RJ Barrett. He still ends up making. That's not a great deal though. Like that. No offense, those 2 guys didn't make the team any better.
I just think it sucks that the GM in the East makes the Eastern Conference. The Eastern Conference being a garbage, not necessarily garbage, because you got the league MVP. I mean, you got the 2 of the last 4 league MVPs came out the East. That's that's Giannis and
Joel.
And Joel. 2 of the last 4 league MVPs came out of the East. And with that being said, there are some damn good players in the Eastern Conference. The problem is that the GMing, they're not doing a good enough job to make these teams better, because you do have great players in the East. And if you can't surround these guys with the necessary pieces in order for these teams to be better, it's going to look like, the East is garbage. Well, why is the East garbage? It ain't garbage because, I don't know, I'm thinking Anthony Edwards won't come to the Cleveland Cavaliers. It's not garbage because of that. It's garbage because the Toronto Raptors. It's garbage because the Charlotte Hornets are passing on guys in the draft that they should be drafting. That's why it's garbage.
Or they're firing coaches too early, and they're paying, because Craig just brought up Milwaukee's GM who was paying 3 different coaches all at the same time because
that's nuts.
You made bad decisions. Not only did you hired a coach that thinks one way, then made a trade to have players that play a different way, and then you wondered why they didn't get along.
Let me ask you, removing Boston from the mix, what teams in the East are the next best led GM teams?
I think they're doing a great job down there in Orlando. I do. They're just a bunch of kids.
That was the first one that came to my mind was Orlando. But beyond that, it gets real sketchy.
I don't know. I think they're doing a good job in Cleveland. I do. I think they're doing a good job in Cleveland. I don't like the fact that they fired Bickerstaff. I don't like that because I think he's a damn good coach.
That's going to be the what's going to happen next with Cleveland, whether it's a success or not. What happens in Cleveland, because that's what I'm saying is you people forget the importance of coaches. If you look at the coaches who've been longest tenured, yes, shockingly, those are the franchises that also have the most success. Now, you could say it's the chicken or the egg. They have success, and that's why they stay around long. But no coach comes in and just poof wins for a long time, right? They have to pay their dues first. And I think that's where, we're in this situation where, well, you got to win now or you're gone. All the players have to like you or you're gone.
My only pushback with Cleveland is Cleveland got into bed with Donovan Mitchell knowing full well he doesn't want to be there. And they've been trying to convince him to stay. I don't think he's going to stay. I think he's going to leave. And so all those assets that Cleveland gave up to get Donovan, for just Donovan basically to walk out the door, I think that's a
horrible offense. It is.
The problem, no,
absolutely.
But the problem with that mentality is though players and agents and the team around a player are going to say things to try and make them, go to where they want to go.
Correct.
And I use Kobe as the greatest example of this, right? He put out word that if New Jersey drafts him, he's going to go play in Italy, right? His dad played there. He speaks Italian. He's out. And so Calipari's like, nah, you know what? I'm not doing it. I think he ends up drafting Kerry Kittles or something. And what does Kobe admit later? Hey man, I just want to play. I just want to hoop. If they draft him, I'll play there.
I would have been there.
So draft. And here's the thing: drafting him, even though he didn't want to be there, it can't hurt because either he's going to play there, like he said he would have, or two, he's gonna bring a real nice haul when you trade him somewhere. So that's why, like the Mitchell, him saying, I don't want to go to Cleveland. Sure, Dame didn't want to go to Milwaukee. Now, I don't like the trade, but he's fine. He played. He didn't say he didn't hold out or anything. You know what I mean? So
true, but I think
so. Kawhi said the only place he didn't want to go was Toronto, and I guess it was only one season, but they make that trade. It still works out, right?
Yeah. I just looking at the landscape of the GMs in the East, the majority of the teams it's been terrible. It's been terrible. It's not like it's just kind of starting. No, they've been terrible. And so my gut is telling me that next year Boston's going to be right back there in the finals. No telling who's coming out of the West. The West is a dogfight. But the only thing I'm looking at is even after those 3 years that you talked about, Fluent, other than maybe Orlando, who else does the East? Who do you trust to build a competent team to compete against them?
I don't trust anybody. What's going to happen is in 2 to 3 years, one of those teams is going to get lucky and they're going to draft someone who either is just a consensus, oh my God, they're the best player and they elevate their franchise, or they're going to draft someone at 3, 5, 7, 13. And that person just is like, oh, wow. And shocks the hell out. Yeah, they're just going to luck into it. So that's what's going to happen.
But Fluent, look at Detroit. Yeah. They've been picking first for years.
That's just one team. So that's just one team that's just had bad luck.
Again,
we had a time, Minor. Unfortunately, brother, we are out of time today. We would love to talk to you, but we will be getting back to you real soon, my man. It was good to see you guys this week, my man Tony Tone. You know what it is.
Can we end on this? We'll go ahead and say what you always say.
We'll end on the Boston Celtics are the NBA champs. They did it.
Ooh.
No doubt. They're in effect. So we'll see what's going on. The season is over. We are not done, guys. We are not finished. We got so much more. We got so much more to do. So we will see you guys soon. Until then, put on a suit, drink water, don't drink and drive. Hey, man, call your mother. When last time you talk to your mother?
Buy some merch.
And get some merch, too. Call your mother. We will see you guys soon. Until then, take it light. We'll take it.
Here's what I'm going to tell you today. I got the Dallas Mavericks.
I think there's going to be a parade in Dallas.
Who'd you guys really beat, though? Who'd you really beat?
I have Dallas. I think Dallas will win.
So obviously I'm going with Dallas.